Hello and welcome to the Deep to NBA podcast. My name's Sean and joining me as always is the one and only Dante Boffman. Boffman, man, how are we?
I'm good. I'm back from my hiatus, my 1 week hiatus.
True, you weren't here last week.
Where you guys recorded the best episode in podcast history.
You reckon? Did you listen to it?
I listened to half of it.
You didn't listen to the DeAndre Ayton, huh?
No, I actually am actively choosing to not engage with that. And I'm telling anyone who asks me about it, obviously he's staying. So that's my answer. That's my version of pleading the fifth.
There's been about a report a day that are just different verbiages of he's not staying.
I can't even be on bloody Instagram, just doom scrolling through my Explore tab without seeing some content about this. But I saw the other day that apparently it was some like Rebel Sport equivalent in Arizona. They're selling Ayton jerseys at like massively discounted rates. Doesn't feel that good.
Rebel Sport Arizona. Yeah, well, remember that's my favorite thing about guys leaving. Like I've got a Kevin Durant Golden State shirt. I never actually got a Ben Simmons one, but I feel like it's a little bit different.
Yeah, wouldn't be caught dead wearing his merch. Just on the Rebel Sport thing, it's made me think about Foot Locker. Did you see when Dame came to Melbourne?
Yeah. And
like he came and did like a big event for Foot Locker, but he also went to the footy.
He was here for the boxing.
He's in the boxing. That Friday night, I think it was Dogs vs Cats.
Yeah.
At Marvel, and I think he went to that. Yeah. I was at that game. Good game of footy.
You and Dame were sitting on the same video.
Good kick of the oval ball, that one. But then he took a photo with all the Dogs players and like Jamara Ugelhagen, who's the Dogs' #1 pick from last year. Like big kind of like they build him as the future buddy, but he can't get a game. He took a photo with Dame, and Dame was just deadpan. Like Dame looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. And Jamara, J-Man as I call him, it's just like beaming. Obviously, you just met Damian Lillard. And I was like, mate, who are you that you can't even muster a smile? Maybe you're in the Dogs locker room and you're like, who are all these fucking footy players? Get me out of here. I'm not getting paid enough for this. Sure. The camera comes out, you put on a smile. Who are you that you're just like there in your fucking like $4,000 Gucci coat and you're like, no, I can't even fucking smile whilst all the blokes around you are like big grins and thumbs up. Like
Dame strikes me as one of those like holier than thou, kappa wearing, goatee touting sort of dudes. Like, do you get those vibes where it's like you would see him at JD Sports if not Foot Locker, just looking through all the all black shoes?
Yeah, I get that.
They're not the sort of guys to
I'm not
smile
sure about
in photos.
Not sure about the goatee part of it, but I understand the message.
Well, he's got a little chin, bum fluff. He's got a little bum fluff, doesn't he?
I just. Some part of me wishes that I could get super like generationally wealthy in my 20s and then like show these guys how to do it. Show them how to have like a little bit of grace, a little bit of class. Like, here's what you do. Like me, I'm over there and like I'm an Australian superstar and like I go watch an NFL game and I'm in like the Las Vegas Raiders locker room after. Even if I don't want to be there. Even if I'm surrounded by big, stinky Americans, you know what I'm doing as soon as the phone comes out? Smile. Big smile.
All right, make it happen. So there'll be a link to the crowdfund in the description of this episode.
Please help make me generationally wealthy.
But that's not the hook. The hook is just to show how to be wealthy with class.
Yeah, I'd fully do it. I'd be a great rich person.
Yeah, Damian Lillard. I had this great chime in the group chat where I was like, maybe he's going to get like Yassified or like the Australian version of that, like Paul Mescal, because obviously Paul Mescal came to Fitzroy and then all of a sudden just like blended right in. Yeah. So what if Dame's just like come off like vintage marketplace?
What was he doing in Fitzroy? Was he here for business or pleasure?
What if those two things collide?
Oh my goodness. It's got a hot flush. You'd be upset that Daisy Edgar Jones didn't come with him.
Nah, she was filming Where the Crawdads Sing.
Yeah. Oh, really?
It comes out 15th of July.
Yeah. I always wondered what a crawdad is, but I think it's some kind of bird.
I believe it is a type of crab. I bet you a handshake on it before you Google it. Done.
It's a crayfish.
You're fucking right. Oath, bro.
Tell you what, I'm looking at these blokes with their mouth parts, I don't reckon they're singing. I don't reckon the vocal apparatus is sufficient to sing, or even possibly to make any noise whatsoever.
Good on you, Dante. So what the hell are we talking about? There's literally Game 6 of the finals tomorrow, which you can't make to watch because you've got work commitments. But I will be watching Golden State clinch their fourth NBA title.
Yeah.
In 8 years.
It's pretty effing good.
On Boston's court. Where do you want to start with this?
Well, let's start with the actual Game 6 itself. I have been on the Golden State bandwagon since the playoffs started, but I've really, since the second round, said Golden State's winning it all. Pretty nonplussed about getting through Dallas in the conference finals. Mm-hmm. And we did a pod a couple of weeks ago looking at this, and I just said, like, this is the Golden State Warriors. They're going to win this series. So I fully expect them to go into Boston tomorrow and seal the deal. Mm-hmm. Because you just know, even as supernova as he's been at times during the series, Steph Curry 0 for 9 in Game 5 from 3, shot like 31%. Gee, that doesn't start with the right number. You just know he's coming out with the big one. Mm. And you know he's coming out with the big one early.
Well, I just think I don't even care about Steph Curry really, because like Ime Udoka has said he doesn't want to adjust and overreact to Steph Curry, but then after Game 4, after he put up 43 points, which was a delight to watch with many people, especially a Boston fan. Shout out to Sam if you're listening. But even he said he wasn't going to change just a drastic, defensive approach, and then after he had 43 on just single coverage, he was like, okay, this is clearly not working. They're in a hole. They need to do something. So they just heavy doubled him, and like the shots that he did take, there were a couple that he didn't take, but the shots that he did take from 3 were very, very, very deep. And then he missed a few easy ones that were because Al Horford simply just doesn't want to get out above the three-point line after 15 years of teaching himself to stay in the three-point line. I can completely understand. So let's say Steph just makes those easy ones. He gets 2 out of 9 threes, and then we win by 20 instead of winning by 15 or whatever. But yeah, if I'm Ime Udoka, what the fuck do you do? Because you actually did everything right, and you had a bit of luck on your side where Steph Curry actually ended up missing these shots, and you still lost by 15 points because as soon as you double him, throw it down to Draymond for the last 8 years, excluding the Kai Bowman year, has just caught the ball. He's got a 4-on-3 sort of mini fast break.
Yeah, and he's probably like the premier 4-on-3 from the free throw line down operator in the league. Like he just knows what to do. He knows where people are going to be.
And he did all the right stuff, and we won. So I had some predictions earlier when we recorded last week, and I've had some predictions about this series, but I literally don't know what you do if you're Ime Udoka. Like, do you mix it up? Do you do that Steve Kerr coverage where you go zone a little bit, then man a little bit, and throw the kitchen sink at Luka? Do you do that? But even if you do, this isn't Luka Doncic, and it's not like Reggie Bullock's going to be making decisions.
No, the other problem as well, and Luka is kind of like the polar opposite of Steph, and it's a spectrum, and there are people in between. There are ball-dominant superstars in between them, but Steph and Luka are the opposite ends of the spectrum, where if you double Luka hard, Luka gives the ball up and then he's out of the play. Steph is never out of the play, because even though he missed a few easy ones, even though he missed a few long ones, Steph, once he gives the ball up, is the best relocating shooter and cutter, probably ever. No one has had this kind of skill set to give the ball up, work off the ball, whether working around screens, in a off the cuff kind of improvisational way, whether this is something that's planned, like it's a set play, or whether there's no screen at all. Like he's the best mover without the ball, and it's just impossible to kind of keep up with him over 2, 3, 4 actions in a play. The upshot of that is either getting a 3 or you're selling out again when he gets the ball to try and get the ball out of his hands. But by that point, the D is so stretched that he's either just stepping through and kind of piercing the outer layer of the D, or passing again, and you're in an even more compromised position after having to defend that 2, 3, 4 times. I don't know what you do.
Yeah.
Other than hope that, I think that on Boston's best day, they can weather a great Steph performance. It's just that they've never gotten their 3 or 4 best players playing well
on
all
the same
together
day.
on the same day. Like if Jaylen Brown's playing well, Jason Tatum's shooting 25%, vice versa. Marcus Smart has had 1, maybe 2 good games. Rob Will has at times looked like an absolute monster, and then in the third and fourth quarters, like, slows down.
Yeah.
Pretty obvious that he's being hampered by his injury.
Yeah.
And for all of the glory of Al Horford's best performances in this series, he's still 36 years old and not something that you can rely on consistently. So,
and shout out Anna Horford, of course, as always, friend of the pod. You're welcome on. We can hash things out live and on air.
Wow, that's what people on Twitter need to see. I think Boston definitely has a win in their locker here, but it's just that their best players have been inconsistent, and you can't beat Steph, let alone the rest of this team when they're playing well.
And like, these two teams know who each other are now. They've played together 5 times, and obviously, there's tremendous amounts of scouting that goes into every playoff series. So, like, we know what's going to happen now. It's just a matter of who's going to make the shots, how do they guard Steph Curry, and vice versa. Do we just keep throwing the kitchen sink at Jason Tatum and letting Jaylen Brown go off in the first quarters? But I also just think, outside of all that, let's jump to the vibes. Like, Golden State just has the mental fortitude. They've been there before. They're the veterans. They know exactly how to grit out a game. They've won on the road. They've won at home. And I just trust Golden State to be like, okay, we don't want to risk a Game 7. Let's just go right at it. And then on the other side of the coin, I don't trust a bunch of 24-year-olds who this is their first time making. Well, they've made plenty of deep runs, but this is their first time in the finals. They're going to be down. I don't trust Marcus Smart and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to be like, yeah, we really have to push through here. When the light at the end of the tunnel for them is a coin flip next game as well. And not to say that they don't want it and they're not heavy competitors, but you could tell that everyone was just exhausted at the end of Game 5, and that same exhaustion is going to be there. But simply, Steph, Clay, Dre, all these guys have gone that length before, and I think they're going to do it again. What's your prediction for tomorrow?
I think Warriors win, and I feel pretty confident in that.
Yeah,
I'm pretty gutted that I'm not going to be able to watch it, but finances. Financing. I think to your point though, like, it's not just about been there, done that versus hasn't quite been there, done that, because I do think that despite their youth, they've appeared in 4, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, 4 conference finals in the last 6 or 7 years. That's quite a lot. This is obviously their first finals, but these guys have experience of being in high leverage playoff moments. They have experience of rising to the top, being the best player on the floor in a high leverage playoff moment. But I think the differentiating factor between these two teams going into this game is that when Steph is himself, he's essentially at worst metronomic. You know exactly what you're going to get from him, and at best supernova. And Wiggins has been exactly that, metronomic. Draymond has been dog shit at times. Clay in Game 5 really seemed like he kind of put it all together a little bit more than he previously had, whereas Brown, Tatum, Smart, they're all wildly inconsistent. Even in the regular season, even in the early rounds of the playoffs, these are guys whose variance between their best and their worst is massive, much bigger than the variance between the best and the worst for many of the Warriors guys. And that's been borne out in the fact that, like I said before, they've never played well together on the same night. And they're still plagued by what have revealed themselves to be typical Boston foibles, where they're loose with the ball, the offense can bog down, Jaylen loves driving into traffic and forcing up vomit shots at the rim or little floaters. Tatum loves long twos. Smart loves anything. Doesn't always work. I said long twos rather than deep twos. I'm sorry about that. I don't think I'm ever going to go out of that. 3.5 years in.
It's
3.5 years in.
It's if it is going to happen, it's going to happen at home, but I don't think it's going to happen. Should we move on to the off-season side of things?
Yeah.
Talking about, it is the off-season for 28 teams right now, and soon there'll be 2 more teams there, win or loss. And let's just talk about the Golden State Warriors, because this may as well just be a Warriors pod soon. But
I haven't done many of those.
What do you do if win or lose? Let's just say win. I think there is actually quite a difference in the decisions there. What do you do if you're Golden State and you win the NBA championship? How do you tackle this offseason?
Well, I think the succession plan is obvious because they've got 3 lottery picks who are there. And Kuminga in particular has flashed real potential when he started, games from like January to April during the regular season. Like, he popped off for a few like 25-point performances, and he just looks like he'll be potentially ready to like play more of a role, which gives you another option on the wing. Moses Moody, I watched his first game and I said, this guy's going to be really good. This guy
You did say that.
And I stand by that. And then Big Jim is like the least clean fit out of all of them, because his presence kind of like demands that they play a different style that he's maybe maladapted to. But in a hypothetical world where he's taken this entire season off, which only half of it was required for his knee rehabilitation, like Rob Williams literally tore his meniscus and then 3 weeks later has like played like 25 playoff games. And James Wiseman, they sat him for
a year and a half.
Quite obviously because they don't think that he's good enough to compete.
Yeah, I mean, that is part of it, but also 7-footer. Let's to be extra careful.
Yeah, but that's still excessive. You bring him back in. You bring him back in.
Such a rock and a hard place, though.
You bring him back in February, and you say, "Okay, we've given you the extra 2-3 months. Now let's just bring you back into the rotation and see if we can."
Well, I mean, Steve Kerr sitting Jonathan Kuminga because he doesn't think he should be out there. I think he should be out there and playing like at least 5 to 10 minutes. But you could at least just say, all right, start in February. You'll play 20 games down the end of the year, but you got to get shut down.
The difference with Kuminga is though that when he was thrust into those roles during the season, he looked like, oh, this guy can be a player. Whereas Wiseman played his whole first season and was like bad. So they obviously haven't seen anything in... Like, if they rested Wiseman and then he came back and started practicing 5-on-5s and he was just tearing it up, they would have been like, oh, shit, we've got to get this guy on the court. But evidently he wasn't doing that.
Well, he played a couple of G League games and he had like 8 points. But
tearing it up.
All right, off-season. So, Andre Iguodala, free agent. Kevon Looney, free agent. Otto Porter Jr., Nemanja Bjelica, Gary Payton II, Damian Lee, and JTA. Let's just assume that Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga are just going to take over Juan Toscano Anderson and Damian Lee's roles in the rotation so perfectly.
Poor JTA.
Yeah. Guess how old he is?
29?
He's 29.
Yeah.
So I think the major decisions are, so we can go over the cap to re-sign Kevon Looney. Nobody tell Brian Windhorst's sources. But if you want to spend the fucking money for your basketball team, you have those avenues. So let's just assume Kevon Looney's going to come back on whatever deal it is. Guess how old he is?
26.
26. Is this in front of you?
No.
Far out.
No, but I feel like we
I feel
like we maybe had this conversation.
He's still young, yeah.
Did you, Lucas, and I have this conversation at dinner last week when we went to the footy?
Maybe.
Because I reckon I've had this conversation with someone, and I was like, he's still young.
I don't think it was me. But anyway, so Kevon Looney's going to get re-signed, whatever. Andre Iguodala, 38 years old.
What do you think Looney will come back for? Like something similar?
Well, it was 2 for 10.
It was 3 for 15.
Shoot me, yeah. I think the same. Like he's one of those guys where it's like you put him on, another team. You put him on the Clippers.
He's more valuable to the Warriors than he is to any other team. And also, I hope that lots of teams have learned the lesson about paying the mid-level for like a backup big.
Yeah,
because
exactly. And that's it. Looney is like, he starts, but he plays 15 minutes, and if he comes off the bench, he still plays 15 minutes.
Yeah, he's like not in the top 20 NBA centers, by any stretch of the imagination.
The microphone's hot.
Don't tell anyone from the Bay Area that I said that.
Jordan Poole has a team option for next year, the final year in his 4-year rookie deal. I reckon they'll pick it up for $3.9 million. But he's extension eligible. There were rumours that he was going to get 4 for $80. I think they should give him that money. Yeah. Whether that might be an overpay, we'll find out.
Give him that money and give him the Glenn Taylor, Andrew Wiggins handshake. Look him in the eyes and say, man, I'm giving you this money, but you need to be better than you are now. I need your commitment that you'll continue to grow. And he says, yeah, mate, no stress. I'll take the $137 million. and get better.
So Otto Porter Jr., who signed here on a goodwill rehab his value contract, I think he has most definitely rehabbed his value. Something that we now know about him is that he can't play more than 25 minutes in a regular season game because he has a degenerative knee/back condition, which is fair enough. He's a good player when he plays, but he's just not that big a role. So I heard some Warriors guys talking about potentially throwing our taxpayer mid-level exception to re-sign Otto Porter Jr. I wonder what you think about that, because I'm like, I don't see anyone out there giving up their mid-level exception or their taxpayer MLE to get Otto Porter Jr. So I think maybe that's an overpay from our point of view. But if he's going to come back here on a minimum, is that really worth his time? I think. But then by me saying that means there must be more money out there. So do you reckon there's someone out there, a playoff team, that's willing to give up potentially their one big tool to get OPJ who can only play 25 minutes?
Yeah, I think there would be, because no team's going to ask him to do more than that. No team who's like no one on the taxpayer mid-level, you're expecting them to play more than 25 minutes a night.
Let's say Clippers, for example.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking immediately the Nets.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the Lakers. The Lakers wouldn't be able to offer him the taxpayer mid-level, most likely. They'll need to use that on someone who's worth
they need the third best player
worth much more than that and wants to come on the cheap.
Yeah.
But they'd be potentially an enticing location for him to say okay, my veteran minimum is $3.5 million, the taxpayer mid level is $6.5 million, so all things being equal, I'd rather just take a little bit less and go and play here. Although that being said, winning a fucking ring in the place might make you want to stay put. But I definitely think there'd be teams that would at least sniff around that. But people have been coming back to the Warriors,
we have seen veterans come back
for years, this entire run. It hasn't been a hit it and quit it 1 year vet min, rehab the value, and then see ya, I'm cashing in on a 4 for 40. It's been, the culture's really good. I love playing with these guys. I'm playing in high leverage moments. I'm winning or competing for a ring. That's pretty much everything that any player wants. And the thing with Otto Porter is, what was that fucking contract he signed?
He's already made his money.
The Kings gave him an offer sheet of 120 over 5 years.
I think Washington just gave it to him.
I think the Kings gave him an offer sheet.
Alright, maybe we'll have to bet that handshake again. Great radio, just us clickety-clacking.
Anyway, I think it was 120 over 5 years, which is fucking huge. And he doesn't need to get one last payday. If he thinks that way, he's gravely mistaken. 106 over 4 years.
But was that
that was his max.
But did the Kings offer it to him, or did Washington extend him?
I guess we'll never know.
I thought that's what we were Googling.
I was Googling the numbers. Otto Porter offer sheet. Brooklyn Nets.
True.
Offers him the 106 million.
That was the Alan Crabb era.
Yeah, the Alan Crabb era. The chaotic era of the Brooklyn Nets, where they
threw money at everyone.
Channeled Chris Lilly and just said, "Oh my god, that's so random. I can't believe I did that." He hopefully isn't he's made in excess of $130 million in his career. Hopefully he's not looking at do I take the 6.5 or do I take the 3?
Or you could get into an instance where, do you reckon Gary Payton demands that money as well? Do you reckon it's a fight between, if Otto Porter says, I want the taxpayer MLE, and
you think Gary Payton's coming back?
This dude who's made no money in his career.
I could easily see someone slapping down 2 for 15 from Gary Payton.
Yeah, I know. That's how it happens.
And 2 years, it's not, it's kind of nothing. But this is exactly what happened with someone like Jonathan Simmons from the Spurs, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where
Orlando.
Yeah, famously he had to pay for his own tryout with the Spurs and ground his way up, and he signed on a Jose Alvarado type contract where it's you just lock up $1.5 million a year because that's life-changing money. And then as soon as you hit free agency, I think Orlando came in with a 4 for 32, and he was yep, done, see ya. He was out of the league.
He never played a game of
He was
basketball
out of the league
again.
before the end of the contract, but he's still got the money. And like Gary Payton is 29 years old. If someone comes along and says we'll give you a multi-year contract, like this is a dude who has been literally every offseason, like G League, Summer League.
Well, you know, the story is that he was trying out to re-sign with the Warriors this offseason, and then went to him when it looked like Avery Bradley was going to get it. He went to him and said, "Look, I want to sign on as a video coordinator and start, you know, making the transition to coaching." That story's been told a million times these playoffs, but yeah, like, you know, it's. I'll pivot from that from saying if you're stuck there saying give Gary Payton 2 years on the taxpayer MLE or give Otto Porter 1 year on the taxpayer MLE, the answer is Gary Payton, I think, unquestionably. But is there a team out there that is gonna, you know, if they get into a bidding war and Gary Payton's like, look, I want to stay here, you're gonna have to overpay me. Is there a team that'll offer him $10 million a year?
No, but there's a team that'll offer him 8. You know, and what's the taxpayer MLE this year? I think it's like 6.5.
Yeah, I think it is 6.5. More great radio where we're just clicking.
Click clack. 6.4 this year. Like the difference between like maybe 2 years 13 and like 2 years 17.5, or even 16. Like it's a bit, and I think that there is. This happens all the time where someone who's like hyper specific in their skill set and was used really well by the coaching staff. People who maybe have a less talented coaching staff see that and they're like, we can work with that. This guy is like a fast break menace. He's got a bit of pop as a roll man. We could work with that. Defensive lockdown on the perimeter. We could really do something to this. And then they sign him and he's like, oh, he can't hit threes very well. Like, and he doesn't really like know how to like dribble and run a pick and roll. Oh, maybe we'll just bench him. Happens all the time. And he's the exact dude who just takes the money, and you know, fair enough. I think if you could lock him in on 2 years at the taxpayer MLE, like do it for sure. And I agree that it would be that over Porter, because whilst someone like Porter, who's a bigger wing who can just absolutely stroke it and defend, you know, threes and fours, is really valuable. Those are the sorts of players who come to championship contenders on like a vet mid. You know, like there's passable guys who will be interested in coming and rehabbing their value with the Warriors next season. Whereas Gary Payton in the Warriors system is kind of like a 1-for-1. Yeah. And the fact that he's, you know, so flexible that he can be like on ice for a few games of the final and then playing like pivotal minutes like deep in games.
It's invaluable.
Yeah, it really is. Like having someone with that situational skill set, and what's more, having him in a place where you know how to leverage that skill set for success. Because, you know, you get lots of coaches and coaching staffs can say, we've got this guy who's, you know, situationally like amazing, and they don't know how to use him. So I think he might be gone.
Oh, really?
Really? Yeah, because I think someone's gonna say like.
I thought you were going to close that with he's going to come back.
Nah.
Wow.
No, I think he's gone because he doesn't value. These guys know how to use me and let me reach my basketball potential more than he values like a multi-year commitment for lots of money. Because, like you know what, must have come out of college when he was like 23, say. 6 years every year in the NBA system, being like, damn, how many like calls must he have got from G League teams, Summer League teams, actual NBA rosters to say you've been cut? Like someone offering him, you know, maybe even if they just offer him like 3 years, 20 million, the campaign deal, you just say like him locking in the third year for someone who's never had any form of like, you know, temporal security at all. That's like.
Yeah. Look, my prediction is Otto Porter Jr. walks and we give Gary Payton two years at the taxpayer MLE. But then the other side of it is Bellinelli's there. I think if he is...
Bellinelli? Bielitsa.
Sorry, Bielitsa. I've written down Belly here. If I can see him coming back for a minimum again, and then, you know, maybe it's just like whether it's a training camp battle or whether it's a battle throughout the season where it's like, okay, who's the backup centre here? Is it Big Jim or is it Belly? Or worst case, you can just keep them both. And it's like
Big Jim's battling with Belly, like, fuck me.
Well, I mean, he's obviously had the injury, so you have to come in and prove it. I still think he can be like. I read the article saying that DeAndre Ayton has laid out the blueprint for where Big Jim can go in his career, and DeAndre Ayton in the playoffs last year, making that run to the finals for the Phoenix Suns. It's like there is still a role for big men like DeAndre Ayton in the finals. They're not defining their team, in my opinion, but they have a role. I don't think you should spend the second pick on them, but they definitely have a role, right? And I think even an easier blueprint is someone just on the roster like Kevon Looney, where it's like if you can just jump, be there, pull.
Kevon Looney can't even jump.
I know. So if you can just like Kevon Looney can't jump and he gets 15 rebounds against the Dallas Mavericks. So if he can just be a supercharged version of Kevon Looney for this team, now maybe he changes teams and or whatever. This Golden State team changes, and all of a sudden he is like maybe a superstar big man fucking 5-6 years from now. That's a thing. But just in terms of competing next year and competing the year after, just beat Kevon Looney. Like, you've got all the physical tools, just beat him. Like, and if you can't do that, then I'll have to have a chat with Lucas from the JVG show again, because he wasn't too happy. He wasn't too crash out with me slacking off a rookie big. Real soft spot for him.
Yeah, but the problem with the Ayton comparison is that by the time he like kind of got his head pulled in and had a veteran coaching staff and veteran leadership on the playing group say to him, this is what we need you to do: defend, rebound, roll hard, set good screens, and you'll have success. He had already proven that he kind of had like a bit more of an offensive game, whereas so they were kind of saying to him like, we know you can do this stuff, we want you to minimize your role, whereas like Big Jim hasn't proven he can do anything offensively really. So they're saying to him, you here's what you need to do. It's theoretically within your skill set, but he hasn't actually proven that he can do it. Like, the big thing about playing that role that you just described is like Looney knows how to fucking screen. He sets great screens. He positionally is very smart. Like, Jim hasn't really shown any positional smarts on offense or defense. So you are saying to him, here's the role we need you to play, you're actually asking him to expand on his body of work rather than compress it. I think Belly strikes me as someone who will come back just on the minimum, and that Kerr would love to have him back, just to be able to throw him in random looks. And
also, he's played well in the finals.
He's a good player, and he's another one of these European dudes who has really defined skills that don't erode with age, because he's almost 35. So he's getting up there. But you talked about Bellinelli before. Bellinelli on that magical Sixers run when him and Ilyasova, another guy, came in as buyouts and propelled them on a 16-game win streak into the playoffs to end the process. Those dudes 33, 34 when that happened. Yeah. And the reason why they were able to perform like that is because they've got 2, maybe 3 really good skills and some real good tactical know-how, knowing where to be, knowing how to play. Those are skills that don't erode. So Belly will come back, I think, because he strikes me, and I don't know why, but he strikes me as someone who's not all about the almighty dollar, and also someone who appreciates a healthy playing environment. Because lest we forget, he played for the Kings. So
also, just we'll take a break after this, but one thing I do want to mention about the fact that Belly's actually hanging in isolations in the finals is more to say about the Boston Celtics than Belly's actually good defense. Because as soon as Steve Kerr goes, all right, sorry, Steve Kerr 2.0, as soon as he chucks Bielitsa in there, it's like, Jason Tatum's eyes just line up like he's Krusty Krab with dollar signs, right? Mr. Krab, sorry. And then, he sees him, pulls him out on an island, he calls for a screen for whoever's man he is, and then he drags him out, dribble. All of a sudden, there's 10 seconds on the shot clock, drives past him. Klay Thompson has been an excellent help defender in this series. Draymond Green might be the best help defender. And all of a sudden, it's like, he's just a tall dude. You still have to shoot over him. He's at least going to meet you at the rim. And then you've just got great help defenders. So I think it's less that Belly is actually able to hang with him and is like a lockdown defender, but more so that he's just going to be there. And the team is just so good at defending. And Jason Tatum loves getting smaller dudes on him and shooting over him, which he very much can.
Yeah.
Can't do that against Belly.
No, but I think that speaks to like the healthy ecosystem as well.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
if he goes to another team, it's not a healthy ecosystem where there's amazing help. He is out there against someone like Jason Tatum, and the coach says, "I can't play this guy. He can't hang with anyone." Whereas in the healthy ecosystem, where his strengths are accentuated and his weaknesses are covered for by his teammates, it's like Steve Kerr knows that he can actually, if he can do 50% of the job, the other guys can finish it off. That's probably a good place to leave it. So let's take a break.
Let's take a break.
The deep two. God, that's a mouthful. Anyways, I'm Marco, co-host of the Hey, Daniel Gafford, what's the name of our podcast?
The JVG NBA Tribute Show.
Wow, I can't believe it's that easy. Thanks, Gaff. You probably know us as two members of the Four Man Weave plus Marco, but we know you as our next listener.
Well said, Lucas. I gotta ask, how do we differ from the Pack of Basketball podcasts?
It's a great question, Marco. You see, on our basketball podcast, we have two male co-hosts.
Wow, truly groundbreaking. After this episode, stay on your favourite podcasting app and give us a spin.
Welcome back to the podcast. Sound of a second half. You're not showing it, yeah.
That's not too bad.
It's pretty bad.
Like, it definitely tastes a bit like metho on the back end.
There's better flavours. So what are we drinking?
Is it a peachy flavour?
No, passion fruit.
Passion
Close
fruit.
enough.
Yeah.
It's a fruit. What's it called again?
Soju.
Soju, yeah. So, speaking of soju, Christian Wood. You're just shaking here, like, how the fuck is he going to pull this one together?
And he's done it, he's pulled it off.
We have a trade to announce. Such a banger. The Dallas Mavericks have traded for Christian Wood and sent back Boban Marjanovic, Sterling Brown, Trey Burke, Marquez Chris, who just had season-ending knee surgery.
The rare 4-for-1.
Yeah, 5-for-1, 26 pick as well. This seems like such incredibly low value for Christian Wood, which might just be where his value's at.
Yeah.
Which also might just... Because I was really liking the Dallas Mavericks Rudy Gobert rumours, because it's like, okay, you've got Luka. Luka's going to maybe take you to the conference finals for the next 5 years, right? He's that good. But if you really want to go over the top, if you really want to beat Steph, Clay, and Dre, or you want to beat Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, like, you have to get someone better than, what Tim Hardaway Jr. didn't suit up against him. But you really need a second guy.
I'm like... Yeah, you need a second guy, but don't like besmirch Tim Hardaway Jr.'s name. I'm on Tim Hardaway Jr.
When was the last time you saw him play? Must have been like April.
January?
January, sure.
Yeah, I reckon it was January.
Okay.
He did his injury then.
So, like, the Dallas Mavericks don't have much to trade. Like, they don't have much in the way of young players on the rise. Like, if you really want Josh Green, you can have him. They've got this first-round pick. I think they have maybe 2026, which is sandwiched in between the Kristaps Porzingis picks.
Sandwiched?
Yeah, that's...
Saying it like an American.
That's a word I can't say.
Do we need to talk about how every American says Warriors? Like, WOYERS?
I've never heard it.
You've never heard it?
No.
Nah, well, send us a reply at PO Box. That's a good one. It's a classic one from the back. No, seriously, they do though, and they say it's the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they call it Jaguars. Like, it's like JAGWARS, and it's like, man.
Have you heard about my basketball team on Mondays, the Torrey Craigs? So, I really want the Dallas Mavericks to get like a Rudy Gobert or DeAndre Ayton, right? Like, I really want them to do that.
Same. I really want them to get a DeAndre Ayton as well.
Yeah, but obviously Ayton's not leaving. But for the assets they have, it would almost be like shooting themselves in the foot to move as many assets as they possibly could. It would be like a 2030 first round pick, which is like, holy shit, that's so optimistic. You think the world's still going to be spinning in 2030. But for them to make one of those super duper trades, it would take just something incomprehensible in terms of assets, something they might not even have. So if you look at the other end of the spectrum, this is how I'm viewing this trade. You look at the other end of the spectrum, and if they say to themselves, okay, we're going to re-sign Jalen Brunson, we're not going to be in the conversation for Rudy Gobert because, like, let's say Pat Williams is just a better asset than anything Dallas could give up, like, for example, right? So then they're like, okay, we can't get anyone expensive. Who's cheap? Out of all the cheap options, the smaller centers that you would be able to trade for, I think Christian Wood might be the best one on that end of the spectrum. Like, because as soon as you're talking about that, you're talking about, like, I don't know, like Kevon Looney or something, right? Like this is a sort of haul. That's probably a bit more than you would get for Kevon Looney, but this is good value if you're going to decide to get the cheapest center out there. What do you think?
I agree with you. I think it is good value, and I think they gave up like nothing, just like a bunch of players who didn't play for them and weren't in the plans, and a late first round pick, like not even a first round pick that's protected in the future that has like any uncertainty attached to it. It's like, yeah, just take pick 26, like that's done, no stress. So I agree on that front, but I don't actually think that Wood is that good, and I don't think he's a good fit for this team. Because I think, like, the allure of the Rudy Gobert type is, like, okay, defensive anchor, cool, love that for a team that's playing lots and lots of smaller guys. Much like a team in Utah where he's proven that he can do exactly that. Where if you are playing, you know, like Finney Smith at the 4, for example, he can just, like, handle that. But Gobert can handle playing with small players and still lead you to having a good D. And Luka just needs like an elite role man. Like I really think that that's the value add, and Woody's not that. Like, he doesn't show the desire to roll, and he's not someone who is like an elite lob threat. Even in the vein of like a John Collins or someone, like someone else who's like a hybrid 4-5, they're about the same size, they've got essentially the same skill set and game. John Collins is a sick roll man, and playing with someone who knows how to manipulate a pick and roll and knows how to throw the lob like really accentuates that. But he has that desire and that skill, whereas Wood is much more of like a face-up big man, take his time, loves the 3, but he's not necessarily like a pick and pop guy. Like, he's more of like a...
He'll find his own 3.
Yeah, he'll find his own 3, and loves a mid-range. I don't know.
But where has Wood been where he's had someone to throw the lob to him? I'm not going to say the whole Nevada thing again.
Yeah.
But where has he been in the past 2 years where it's like, okay, this is a guy, bread and butter, put him in a pick and roll, and he'll do it.
It's not so much about like the finishing product though. It's about the process. Like, he's not someone who's coming up and like has learned screencraft or has chosen to learn screencraft, because screencraft, yes, it's a craft. There's fundamentally not that much to learn. If you're 6'10" and 240 pounds, you have the ability to set a great screen. And it's kind of like defense. You just have to decide you want to be good at defense. If you're in the NBA, 90% of the players have the ability to be a good defender for their position. Same with big man and screening. And like, Wood is 27 and has been in the NBA system for X amount of years, 7 years. And like, he hasn't developed this. Like, it's like taking a punt on someone who's been in the NBA system for 7 years and is a bad defender and saying, oh, well, maybe he will.
maybe it's different.
He won't. So I don't think that it's a matter of like, he hasn't had anyone to throw him the lob. It's not like he's like setting the screen, rolling hard downhill and getting himself in position, and like shitty point guard X is throwing it off the backboard. I just...
Fuck you, Frank Jackson, if you're listening.
Yeah, fuck you, Frank Jackson. I'm just skeptical, and then the other side of it is like, you lock yourself into like having a bad defensive center.
Yeah, so I think he's got 2 years remaining on his deal, but I agree with everything you're saying. Like, I do just want to see it, and it's like, okay, what's
this is the last year of his deal.
Okay, this is the last year, and honestly, like, if he doesn't stick in the league now, I don't know who's going to pay him as much money as he did when he first went to Houston.
Well, he also only went on like, what was like 13
3 for 41.
Like, it's a reasonably cheap contract for, at the time, he had just broken out in Detroit, and people were like, "Holy shit!" Like, we were talking about this guy like 20 million. We were saying like 4 for 80. You got him for like 3 for 41.
Also,
Amazing,
to be fair, he was going to be the center next to James Harden. Think about that.
Yeah.
So long ago, but it was only what a year ago or a year and a half.
Yeah.
With COVID shortened season.
Yeah, it would have been just under 2 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So from Houston's point of view, they now have picks 3, 17, and 26 in this year's draft. They obviously just got 4 guys who, let's assume they're going to waive all of them.
I mean, Marquise Chris is not going to be on the team.
Sterling Brown, he was supposed to be good for Dallas, but he wasn't. I don't hate keeping like Boban Marjanovic around for like a veteran in the locker room, because clearly
Tobias Harris is on Houston watch.
Clearly Steven Silas needs some veterans in that locker room. Like the fact that they end up with Dennis Schroeder at I was going to say halftime, the trade deadline, and then they're like, oh my god, just a guy who knows how to dribble and like actually tell people to go to bed at 9 o'clock or whatever the fuck a veteran does, right?
Yeah. I think that's what they do.
Well, the only thing I remember is Jared Dudley when he was on that Jason Kidd Bucks team, and then Jason Kidd used to do NBA trivia once a week. Like, fuck, I wish I was on that team.
Yeah.
But he would ask heaps of questions about like the 80s and 90s, and then none of the kids knew what the answers were. Like this Michael Carter Williams and stuff, and he's like, what the fuck's Bimbo Coles? And then Jared Dudley just apparently they would just send him all the tests, and he would answer them for him. That's what I think a veteran does. So picks 3, 17, 26. Houston said that they're open to trade, but every single GM in top 5 says they're open to trade. It's just good business. It's really hard to trade up, and it has been very hard to trade up ever since the Kings traded down for Skella Bissier. I don't think we've seen like a real bundle and move for a very long time now. And so you can think of anything that I'm missing. It's hard if you've got...
Well, not when you're like trading up from like 3 to 2.
Sorry, I'm talking about in the later half of the draft. I didn't mention that. So they've got picks 17 and 26. Like if you go to Cleveland, who I think have the 14th pick, and say, "Hey, we'll give you 17 and 26," they're going to say no. Like
but if you went to someone for the 19th, like that then becomes more commensurate value, especially if you have a guy who's there like that. Like a team then is like probably saying yes. You just have to hit the value right. You won't be able to trade up into the mid to late lottery with those 2 picks.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that are they in like a bit of a dicey spot, because none of the guys that they've just acquired are going to be like part of the plan. Like Trey Burke can play for you. Marjanovic, you just talked about keeping around. But last year they had picks 2, 16, and 22 or something, and they came away with Green, right, Şengün, and Garuba. And Şengün obviously was great. Green obviously is locked down 35 minutes a game. Like that's not changing. Garuba, who we all loved after watching at the Olympics for Spain,
Didn't play.
Didn't play at all. So, are you bringing in like mid to late second round picks with those guys on what is it, 17 and 26? Is that what we're talking about?
17 and 26.
Like,
yeah, it's like he's going to do it all again. Get another Şengün, another Josh Christopher and stuff. Also, I love how you're talking about like, oh, Şengün's good, Josh Green, 35 minutes game. It's like as soon as you start mentioning their minutes a game as a stat, it's like,
well, I mean,
he hasn't proven anything yet.
Well,
but he
was like at times diabolical as a rookie.
Yeah. And he's a rookie.
They're not saying to Jalen Green like, you really need.
Let's not take it too serious.
No. I'm not taking it serious. I'm just.
You're taking it fucking serious.
No, there's no way that they're putting any kind of accountability on him whatsoever. They're saying you can do whatever the fuck you want, and you'll play 35 minutes a game.
I'm interested to see whether they just do this again, draft a bunch of young dudes, because there's a tiny bit of merit in just, let's say in 3 years they use 9 first round picks, and let's say when they're a championship contender, 4 of those picks are on the team.
The problem with that though is that like if those
roster
picks
spots
all hit, roster spots and extensions. Like if you get 3 dudes,
you can always trade him. Like Malik Beasley, Beasley was like the 17th pick. Just trade him before he gets too expensive.
Yeah, but then you're missing out on like.
But you're not. Like
but if it works out, you are, because you're trading them away at the.
No, but you keep the good ones, and then you let the role players walk.
But that's what I'm saying though. Is like, say that like one out of these, say they make these picks this year, one out of these 2 picks is really good, like good at like a starter level, and then or like a good role player, 5, 6, 7th man, and then next year the same thing happens. All of a sudden you've got Şengün, guy X plus whoever you bring in to fill out the starting lineup as veterans. If you bring in a star, like the money doesn't work if you constantly are bringing in young players and have to extend them all at the same time. Like,
well, we're about to see that with Memphis. Like, what do you do with Brandon Clark, Dill Pickle Brooks, Kyle Anderson, who they brought in?
Is potentially going to see something like that as well.
They've decided to let one of them walk.
Yeah, well, but Cam Johnson's coming up for an extension. He's extension eligible.
He's also. Can he get seniors meals yet?
Jeez.
He might be older than Kevon Looney.
Nah, I'm actually way less. Yeah, he probably is.
26. They're both 26 years old.
It's a bit fucked. But yeah, you kind of you can deal with it. You can deal with it with like 1, maybe 2 players, but then when you have all these dudes coming up at the same time, like you can't handle it. It just seems to be more staggered, especially if these guys were late first round picks. We're talking about none of them like breaking out and being like the 3rd guy. We're talking about them being like the 6th guy. You eventually can't pay them all, and yes, you can trade them. Malik Beasley, dump, whatever. But then it comes back to is investing 2 years in this guy to be like not really a contributor, and then getting 2 good years out of him, and then like having to get rid of him before he actually hits his peak, worth more than packaging the picks and trading for a veteran now, or packaging the picks and trying to trade up. Becomes a value proposition, and the more picks you make, like yes, the more chance there is that you'll get like a good player. But there's also the chance that even if it works out and your scouting department does its job and you draft well, you just run into this problem that decreases the value you obtain from the picks anyway.
I completely hear what you're saying. I think we've got a difference of philosophy.
Should we shake hands and agree disagree?
I just think more bites of the apple. You can, if your scouting department is good enough to hit on all your picks, they're also going to be good enough to know who's going to pan out.
I think that in other sports, in other sports it works better. Like in American football, it works way better. You just swing, and you can, if you hit, you just figure out ways to keep them all. But there's like
20 guys on the court. How many people are on it?
Well, there's 11 on each team at any one time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, but and AFL you get like 22 to look at.
Yeah, for sure. And I just think that like the restrictions of the salary cap as well, like just mean that.
But I think
especially for a team that's not going to pay the luxury tax.
I think it's a fine problem to have. Like if you get Yusuf Nurkic and Nikola Jokic is better, you just trade Nurkic for value. Like they got good value. I mean, they thought value was Mason Plumlee, but they at least got it. Like they wanted to get rid of Jared Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley, and they didn't have to attach anything to do that. I think it's a good problem to have, because then you can look at everything and make decisions where it's like, do we want Gary Harris or Malik Beasley? Do we want Yusuf Nurkic or Nikola Jokic? Do we want Jamal Murray or Emmanuel Mudiay? Obviously one of them didn't work, but same thing happens. We've already agreed to disagree. Fun fact, I was actually showing housemate and friend of the pod some, I'm slowly drip feeding him, and by that I mean cramming down his mouth basketball. And then I'm on YouTube. That's sort of like a video platform, Dante, where, and I'm just.
I don't want to knock your socks off, Sean, but have a look at this. Have a look at this one tab.
Yeah, tab open. Oh my goodness!
Look at that.
So I'm just trying to find ways to ease him into basketball watching. And like we've watched a few games together, but then I'm like, I'll just show him some highlights. So it's just like, the most sort of. Like the best fakes of the 2021-22 season, right? Because he's really into that. So
fakes
as in like the Rajon Rondo, like not
that's
fucking.
That's pretty
fakes.
Niche for someone who's just started watching basketball.
He loved it, right? And he's going through. And he's like, oh my god, like Luka Doncic does that one where he goes up and he taps the back, like, and Chris Paul does heaps of it as well. All that, and then fucking 2 Emmanuel Mudiay highlights, and then Llewellyn's like, who's this dude? Oh, don't worry.
Hey, there's a reason why people were ruining their day. There's a reason.
Was it kill your car for Okafor? So car, bro.
Jesus.
That doesn't deserve an exhale. It's a car.
No, like that's bad.
Okay.
That was not an exhale like whoa. That was an exhale like holy fuck. I wish you hadn't said that, or I wish that had never been coined.
Do you want to touch on the JaMychal Green trade for 5 minutes?
Yeah, you kick us off with that.
JaMychal Green's been traded in a salary dump. Shock and awe. I said it 2 weeks ago when we did 4-man weave plus Marco. If you start to see the tea leaves, or if the tea leaves just smack you in the face a couple of times, smell nice but smack you in the face, that they are dumping salary, watch the fuck out, because while Josh Kroenke / Stan Kroenke, whichever one's got the beard and younger, said, hey, we're going to pay the luxury tax, there's different levels to that. Who was the rapper who said that? There's levels to this shit? Whoever. Mail us at PO Box. So you can say, yes, we're paying the luxury tax. Give Nikola Jokic his Supermax and sign Gary Harris to the mid-level exception. And you could pay $1 million in luxury tax bills. Or you could keep Monty Morris, who's in trade rumours, and you could keep JaMychal Green, who was on the roster, and pay $15 in luxury tax bills. So he can keep to his promise and just be a hair over and lose players on the court who help you win. I don't think JaMychal Green helps you win. That's why they had to give up a 2027 pick to move on from him in exchange for the 30th pick. But, slightly disappointing, and I'll wait and see if Monty Morris gets traded.
Yeah, the strange thing is that they could just do this in a year. You could just
let him walk.
Well, but with your two guys coming back in MPJ and the other one, the Canadian guy, with the fucking
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah, that's the one. You have Murray and MPJ coming back. This is we spent all of last season banging the drum saying this isn't the year for the Nuggets. Next year is the year. Now the year is approaching and you're trying to trim salary. You could just pay the tax in like full form this year or mid form this year. Assemble like a roster, have a crack. If it doesn't work, then let Morris walk, sign and trade him. Green is a bit like inconsequential because he wasn't helping you, you said. But if you need to trim, you obviously don't want to get hit with a repeater bill because you're, the cheapest billionaires that there are. So next off-season, you're saying, well, we just paid the luxury tax. We can't do it again, otherwise we'll get hit with an even bigger bill. We're going to let this guy walk, trade this guy, done. But this year, you, do it. And you do it properly, because if you do it a little bit, guess what? If you do it the next year, to put a contender on the floor again, you have to pay the repeater bill. So,
Yep. This is all while people who live in Colorado can't watch Denver Nuggets play basketball for the second or third year in a row because they can't work out a TV deal.
Fucking Cronkies, man.
Yeah, man.
They're actually bad for the planet.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening to the episode. This episode was, of course, sponsored by Masterclass. Dante is hosting his very own masterclass on billionaire decorum. We already have 2 sign-ups in Stan Kroenke and Damian Lillard, so be sure to check that one out. Masterclass is great. They've also got Steph Curry on shooting, Margaret Atwood on writing.
Yeah. Start in the top left and work your way across and down.
Chris Kardashian on mummaging.
In all seriousness, you can find the link to my masterclass in the show notes, and make sure that you remember to like us on Facebook, Instagram, and follow us on Twitter, and leave a positive review on Apple or iTunes.
Haven't said that in a while. Check out the website, thedeep2.com. I can't believe it's that simple.
Wait. What?
I said it too fast. Do you want me to say it slower?
Wait, say it.
Actually, can you save your happy-go-lucky? We're going to record the ad read after this. So save it for that. Talk to you next week.
Bye.
We were over the moon when we first heard that the NBA was going to be televised on Australian free-to-air TV in the 2019-20 season. It didn't exactly go swimmingly, with the nasty cough halting the season and games getting cancelled left, right and centre, but it was a huge step and an exciting one for basketball fans all across the country.
Better yet, it wasn't a commercial channel cashing in on some basketball nerds like us. It was SBS, one of our public broadcasters. Unfortunately, the NBA wasn't the only thing SBS was pushing last season. They also ran advertisements from Sportsbet, Ladbroke, Bet365, BetEasy, and Neds, some of the biggest sports betting companies in Australia.
In a one step forwards, two steps backwards move, SBS has dropped the ball here. As a public broadcaster, SBS plays a key role in providing relevant, culturally appropriate health information to local communities. The last thing SBS should be doing is offering a platform for gambling companies during the most financially unstable time in recent memory.
This past year, men aged 18 to 24 made up 79% of new gambling account holders, with increased median spending and frequency of bets. This is the last thing we should be spending our money on given the financial uncertainty that comes with the pandemic. During COVID lockdowns, wagering companies spent more money on advertising and incentives to gamble, and it worked. SBS needs to hear from viewers that gambling ad revenue isn't worth the harm it causes. Call on the SBS chair, George Savitas, to put community health ahead of gambling revenue by signing the petition at www.endgamblingAds.org.au/get gambling off SBS with hyphens in between.